John, are you ready? Okay. So it looks like it's just past 9 o'clock and time to get started. The 13th annual Poynter KSU Media Ethics Workshop. Hello, thank you so much. Oh, thanks. Kelly and Indira and I are pleased to raise these issues for examination and debate with you today and offer these deep discussions with professionals and educators and students, not just our own students, by the way, but all of our friends from Akron U, the University of Mount Union, and others who are watching our live stream today. Details for today, so I just get to do the details. If you need help or have any questions throughout the day, look for someone who has a tag like mine with a green dot on it, and anybody with a green dot can help you. They can help you sign on, they can help you get, where you need to go. So anybody with a green dot tag can help you. Those are members of the workshop planning team, and they have been wonderful. If you need help signing into the internet right now, raise your hand, and Mark will, raise your hand, Greg. And Mark will come down and sign you and get you hooked up right now. If you're registered for the whole day, you also should have a name tag that kind of looks like this, no green dot. The name tag is so important because your name tag is your lunch ticket. So some people come in and out, but everyone who's here for the whole day has to have a name tag or else the bouncers won't give you your lunch. So be sure that you have your name tag, okay, and keep your name tag, all right? So that'll be good. For those of you who are not familiar with Kent or with this building, the restrooms are down the hall to the right. The men's room is first and the ladies' room is a little farther down. We encourage you to tweet throughout the day. The hashtag is hashtag KSUEthics17, and that's all one word. So hashtag KSUEthics17. And the Twitter feed is available all day and visible on the right-hand screen. So if you tweet in, you'll see your tweet. Please be sure you feel comfortable asking questions of our experts and panelists. They know we have left room at the end of virtually every session for you to ask them questions. And we have people here to give you microphones so that your question can be heard on the live stream. So be sure that if you feel like you have something you want to say or ask, you should absolutely feel welcome to do that. We'll get that mic to you and it'll be fine. And before I introduce our dean, I wanted to let you know that the topic of fake news may lend itself to some interesting opinions, but this is not inherently a political program. So we try to get people with different points of view, and you will hear different points of view. So I hope that we can all share that. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Dean of the College of Communication and Information, Amy Reynolds. I'm sure that's all.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. We're delighted to have you with us in person, and those of you joining us via live stream, we're happy you're able to join in today. So you all know that media ethics and how we think deeply about media ethics is one of the reasons that our School of Journalism and Mass Communication has national prominence and a national reputation. And I'm really proud of that because I think it's incredibly important. We know we're committed to teaching future communicators, future journalists, future public relations, advertising, film, media production practitioners skills. That's central. But we also know that for our students to succeed, they have to understand the broader world around them. And ethically engaging with the profession is incredibly important. And so what I love about this workshop is it's a signature opportunity for us to work with our partners across the country to bring relevant, timely, and impactful programming to the Kent State campus and sharing it via live stream. So I'm delighted you all are here. You know, of course, that fake news is not a new phenomenon. We've been talking about this pretty actively for the past year. But I think that this particular issue is a really important one, not only for this workshop to tackle, but for us to think about, because it really gets at some of the core things we know that matter about our professions, right? We know that democracy works best, and I would argue maybe even doesn't work, without a robust, free, and vibrant press, right? And if we get into the negotiation of what is fact, what is truth, or if we get into circumstances where there is a real challenge for citizens to understand how media works and where they can get information, I think we're harming society. So I think this is going to be a wonderful discussion. We have a terrific lineup of panelists, and I'm grateful to you all for spending your day with us, and I appreciate Professor Leach's tireless efforts on behalf of this workshop, because it matters. This is an important workshop, and the topics we discuss are incredibly, incredibly significant. So I hope that at the end of the day, you leave here feeling renewed, recharged, refreshed, and recommitted to this core important role that we play in society. So with that, let me turn things over to the interim director of our School of Journalism and Mass Communication, Jeff Fruit. Thanks.
Good morning. So I have a great role today. I get to be the acknowledgement and thank you dude. So in that role, the first thing I want to say, acknowledgement and thank you dudes don't have to wear coats and ties. But let me let you in on a little secret. Neither do you. This is a workshop, right? So we're going to get down to it today. So you speakers, people, get comfortable, because you are going to be hearing from an unbelievable lineup of people. Talk about smartest person in the room. We got a whole room full of smartest people in the room on this topic today. And so I think you're going to have a really, really dynamic program today. And I too want to, in doing the thank yous, and Jan, I'm going off script here, I want to acknowledge a couple of people that have really made this conference, and it starts with Jan. And I remember very well, back, I think, in 2003, when Jan was just starting with us as a professional in residence, she came to me one day and said, "Hey, I'd like to do a little ethics conference. It'll be fun. What do you think?" And I said, "All right, let's try it." And none of us knew, of course, that what was going to happen in the next dozen years. But one of the reasons this has really worked is our partnership with Poynter. And Kelly, I think, have you been to all of these, or all but one? Kelly and Poynter have just been critical to making this conference work in terms of getting those speakers, in terms of giving us that continuity, having the history, thinking about what we've done in the past. But Kelly, we are really appreciative of Poynter's work with us, because it has really made a huge difference with the expertise your folks bring to the table and the best practices and all that. So thank you. We've got a wonderful array of sponsors, and acknowledge that you're thinking, yeah, let's get on with the program. There is no program without these folks, and and it is a tremendous array of partners that have been. Most of these folks have worked with us for many years now. The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation has been a very consistent supporter and has helped in many ways. WKSU, Andrew Meyer, news director, is here today. They've been a great partner for us. Akron Beacon Journal and Ohio.com. Bruce Wingus is going to be talking later on in there. We're appreciative of their support. The Public Relations Society of America, Akron chapter, is active and been supportive. Tree City Coffee, and a bunch of Kent State institutions too. The college has been very helpful, and thank you, Amy, for helping us support this. The School of JMC, of course, has been very active in this. Jan's own Media Law Center for Ethics and Action. And last but not least, our teleproductions crew. This crew does amazing work, and part of the reason is we're not just doing little live streams, but this is live TV. And with live TV, we try and do it to that standard. And I encourage you, if you get a break at some point today, go down to the first floor and see what's going on there, or acknowledge those guys in that, because they do wonderful, wonderful work for us and have over the years there. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Chad Pater. Chad, you want to wave there? He's the head of the Association for Education and Journalism and Mass Communication Ethics Division. So we're happy to have him here today, too. So great conference coming up today. Enjoy yourself. Don't forget your tag for lunch. And so now we're going to get started. And our moderators to begin are Kelly McBride and Indira Lakshmanan, the Newmark Chair in Ethics at the Poynter Institute, are going to lead us off. So have a great day.
No?
There we go. There's my mic. All right. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Kelly McBride. I have been here 12 of the 13 years. The one year that I had to miss was like a last-minute pullout. It was, yeah, I felt really bad about that. But this is, for me, an amazing conference because we always talk in Washington and in New York. We spend a lot of time in that corridor talking about these issues, and we're always talking to the same people over and over again. I am from Ohio, and I love coming back to my home state and very much appreciate having these conversations outside of that media corridor where the rest of the world lives. So thank you very much for having me. I'm going to do a real quick 10-minute run through just to set the table. And these are, much of the information you're going to see in this actually doesn't even come from me. It comes from the real experts here. So Alexios Mantzarlis is as a faculty member at the Poynter Institute and also the executive director of the International Fact Checkers Network. Claire Wardle is at First Draft News. And then Ben Decker is at Storyful. And I much of what I'm going to show you here is their work, and I don't take credit for it. So if you want more on this, you should be looking at Poynter, at First Draft, and tracking down Ben Decker's work at Storyful. Okay. All right. Track their work down if you want to go deeper. It's fascinating. You won't be disappointed. So let's start with some definitions, because the thing is fake news just doesn't cut it. And I'll show you why it doesn't cut it. But first, let's talk about misinformation and disinformation. And really, this is Claire Wardle at First Draft. But misinformation is the inadvertent sharing of false information. And we all are guilty of this. Come on, laugh. That's funny, right? Like, you know that shark wasn't in Houston. Or if that shark was in Houston, he gets around because he was in the subway in New York during Sandy. He was in Miami during a sunny day flood. I think he showed up in Naples last week when they flooded. So, yeah, that shark that's a fake photo. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, 80-some thousand. Yeah, 88,000 retweets. Now, a lot of those were people who knew it was fake and were making fun of him. But disinformation is the intentional creation and sharing of false information. And it's much more harmful. But here's an example of disinformation. Somebody's creating something that they know is false with the intention of it being shared and often with the intention of undermining democracy. But the thing is these definitions are shifting, and this is why our language has to get a little more precise, because fake news has been around for a long time. But shortly after the election last year was the first time that Donald Trump actually tweeted the word fake news. This was his very first tweet that ever used the word fake news. And he basically, at this point, was using it to say, this information is bad. But he quickly shifted definitions and started using fake news as a way to undermine any particular criticism of him or his administration. And many people in government now are using fake news to try and discredit legitimate journalism. And so the definition itself has shifted from what I think is the standard definition of information that is wrong and meant to undermine the truth, to now people are using fake news to say journalists who are criticizing the government and shouldn't be. And there's a problem with that, because when you can't agree on the definition of a term, it becomes useless to you. So even though we're going to use the term fake news, and I have a hard time not using the term, it's important to drill down to some deeper definitions. And one way to think about those definitions is to think about precisely what is the information? What is it that was created? Who made it? And how is it distributed? Because as we look more deeply at fake news, what you'll see is that there's actually many varieties. There's at least 7 categories of fake news. And again, this is a chart that was made by First Draft. But you see that satire and parody is often mistakenly shared as real information. And when that happens, it becomes fake news. When somebody shares an Onion article and they don't realize that the Onion is a satire publication, it shifts from being a satire or a parody to fake news because of the intention of the person who shared it. Information that's simply misleading, that can also be fake news. And so that means that when journalists get things wrong, when they make a mistake, it comes under this broader category of fake news. Imposter content is content that's meant to mimic a genuine source. Fabricated content is like that 9/11 article that I showed you, suggesting that, that the towers collapsed because of internal bombs in the building. Completely false connections, where that's Pizzagate, right? Where you take information that is rooted in truth, but then you come to absolutely erroneous conclusions. False context and manipulated content, so the shark photo is manipulated content. So there are 7 different types of misinformation and disinformation. And drilling down, because one of the things that we have to do as citizens is become a little bit more savvy about not just is this information true or not, but if it's not true, how is it false? And so as we have these conversations today, I'm hoping that we can go deeper and we can start to pull apart some of these examples. And so finally, I want you to think about this problem not as simply an assault on democracy, but think about it as a sexually transmitted disease, right? Because if you work at the CDC and you are concerned with the spread of disease, you're not just looking at the people who get it. You're looking at how it spreads. So if you think about it this way, a lot of times fake news begins on a closed network, something like Reddit or 4chan, where people are talking in a very distorted environment. And then it migrates, because that information is then shared, to a slightly less closed network, like WhatsApp or even Snapchat, where people are sharing information directly with each other. From there is how it often goes to a broader domain, like InfoWars or YouTube, which is meant to be for general distribution. But the standards of creation for the content on those sites are loose at best. And from there, it goes to a broader, more common platform like Facebook. Right? So if you think about this as a system, we in this room are often exposed to fake news for the first time at the 4th stage of its evolution. And from Facebook, sometimes it goes to the mainstream. And the Seth Rich story is an example of that. You know? So this is, if you think about this as a systemic problem, if you think about it as a medical issue, we, for the most part right now, are only treating the wound. We are only treating, if you look at PolitiFact or the 4 Pinocchios that the Washington Post gives, when we do fact-checking, we're putting a dressing on the wound at that point. But how do we stop the epidemic before it gets to contagion? And that's where I think we need to be spending our effort. That's what I'm hoping that we can do today. So I want to introduce my colleague, Indira Lakshmanan. Do you want to grab a mic here? Indira is a new ethicist at the Poynter Institute. She previously worked, you've got that one too. There you go. She previously worked at Bloomberg. She is a columnist for the Boston Globe. She has covered the State Department. She has been an international correspondent, and she sees this from a variety of perspectives. When you came to Poynter 8 months ago?
Well, I actually physically came to Poynter, as you know, in July, but I started in middle of March with you guys.
When you came to Poynter, you came because you wanted to address this connection. And so now that you've been spending a little bit of time, what do you think our chances of getting on top of this issue are?
Well, I think they look a lot better than they did last fall when everyone became aware of the issue. And, you know, the fake news problem is not a new problem. It's just kind of been branded as fake news in the last year. And as Kelly has pointed out with all of these wonderful slides put together by First Draft and by our colleague Alexios, who works on fact-checking, I mean, one good thing that came out of the 2016 election was the realization of how easily fake news spreads, but it has been spreading for years. I mean, I assume that back in caveman days that there were fake Paleolithic drawings on walls too. You know, I don't think it's a new phenomenon. It's just that Facebook and Reddit and some of these channels that you talked about, some of these platforms have allowed it to spread in an alarming way. And because there is evidence that it affected, it certainly affected people's perceptions. There's no way of proving that it affected the outcome of the 2016 election, but it certainly affected perceptions, something that we'll be talking about in another one of the panels. And this is just, I'll put up a slide about it in a later panel, but I am struck by how on Facebook in 2016, an incredible analysis done by Craig Silverman at BuzzFeed found that of the 20 top most popular fake news stories about the 2016 election. So these are things like Pope endorses Donald Trump, which never actually happened, or Hillary Clinton involved in, you know, FBI agents murder-suicide, never actually happened. Those top 20 headlines versus the top 20 headlines that were actually real news about the 2016 campaign, the top 20 fake ones were shared, liked, had 1.3 million more pieces of engagement than the top 20 real news headlines about 2016. So Facebook allows people to have the platform for sharing fake news so much more easily than it was shared before. And the photo that you showed of this shark who really gets around, you know, Twitter, of course, every one of these platforms gives people the ability to just, you know, in the old days, it would have been just a whisper campaign, like, oh, did you hear blah, 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 you know, gossip, which wasn't true, but you couldn't broadcast it to millions of people, and now you can. So I mean, I think that we'll be talking in some of the later panels about news literacy and some of the ways to try to help the demand side of that problem. In other words, what we as news consumers understand and perceive to be true, and it's a very complicated problem. I think it's a years-long solution. In answer to your original question, am I optimistic? I'm a lot more optimistic than I was last fall when we became aware of the scope of the problem. I think that a lot of people are really involved in trying to attack this problem head on in a way that we weren't aware a year ago.
And that's a really good place to be in. So we're going to get started. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. We're going to get started. I'm going to bring up Mandy and Mizell, and we're going to switch to Mizell's slides, and I'm going to grab their introduction information.